See, my name is Nobuaki Hanaoka. I was born on December 25th, 1944, about 20 miles from the city limit of Nagasaki. We're in between Sasebo and Nagasaki. So in a way, we are downwinders. So when the atomic bomb fell on Nagasaki, I was only 8 months old baby. In other words, I have no personal recollection of what the devastation of the city was like. And people who saw the devastation of the city, the bodies piled up, still smoldering, skin, dangling down from the faces, eyeballs sticking out and begging for water. And the moment you give them some water, they just collapse and die. And people still have a nightmare, after 75 years. But I didn't have that. But in Fukuoka, when I was 6 years old, my mother died. And then a few months later, within the same year, my sister died of leukemia. And as far back as I can remember, they were both in bed, looking very pale, very weak. I think the leukemia does that to you. So I don't remember my mother up and around. She was always in bed. And my mother was always concerned about me. And, when she died, I was in the first grade. My brother came to fetch me. And I remember running across the schoolyard with my brother crying. And when I got home, everybody was there crying. So I remember vividly the day she died and how sad it was, because she never really had a chance to live and enjoy motherhood. When I was about 22 or something like that, my brother died of a mysterious illness. When the doctors performed the autopsy, they found that his internal organs had deteriorated, as in the elderly man. And I thought maybe that had something to do with the radiation. And I asked the doctor if that was the case, and he said he wasn't sure. But he did say that, being exposed to radiation, anything could happen. It's like having a time bomb inside of you. Right after my sister died, my father wanted to know what was going to happen to the rest of the family. And the doctor said if he was exposed to the same amount of radiation as his mother and sister, he may not live to see his 10th birthday. I was only 6. I didn't know how to process that kind of thought, that I only had 4 years left. And I was so shocked and depressed, and withdrawn. I was not able to utter a word for months. And then my 10th birthday came and went without an incident. In a way, I was relieved, but at the same time, the feelings of guilt. Why did such good people like my mother and my sister have to die? And I, good for nothing, I'm still alive. And I was almost always apologizing for being alive. And later on, when I began to associate with Hibakushas, I learned that it was common, quite common, to have that kind of feelings. It's called the survivor's guilt. And another thing that I remember was that, people telling us, my relatives are telling me, don't tell anybody that we used to live near Nagasaki when the bomb fell. Because if they know that you are a survivor, no one will hire you, no one will marry you, because you never know when you get sick and die. So even though I was spared from the initial impact of the radiation or the explosion of the atom bomb, I was suffering mentally and socially all my life. And it never left me 75 years later. So I would say nuclear bombs don't simply kill you, but make you suffer all life. It's the fact that they all felt that those who died immediately after the bombing were the lucky ones, because they were spared of the long sufferings, pains, and nightmares, and so forth. And every time I catch a cold or something, I always felt that this is the end of my line and ready to go. So I couldn't really plan on anything, long terms. So that was personality that was created by the atomic bomb. So Friends of Hibakusha was basically a support system for the Hibakushas, so that they could talk about their experiences without making people being annoyed of hearing the same stories. I think I'm just about the youngest among the survivors, Hibakusha, and I'm getting old. and I want to speak up as much as possible before I can't anymore. So I really think that nuclear bomb is not just a bomb. It's a means of indiscriminate killing, mass destruction, and creators of mass misery. So what we need to do is to make sure that there's no more war. you know, we must do everything to keep peace. So, you know, the whole thing is, you know, we have returned to the Cold War era nuclear arms race between Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, US. And I think the United States has to take leadership in, you know, bringing these nuclear states, 9 states in the world now, and you know, we should gather them to a table of negotiation and start discussing dismantling of all these nuclear arms. And otherwise, anything could happen. People talk about the threat of nuclear weapons or nuclear wars, but nobody can talk about it in personal terms. I can still talk about my death of my mother and sister and my brother. It's personal. You know, we're not talking about nuclear weapons anymore. We're talking about thermonuclear weapons. The thermonuclear weapons are at least 1,000 times more powerful than the conventional nuclear weapons. And it's getting more and more powerful, destructive. And if anything happened, you know, and also Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs were only 15 kilotons or 20 kilotons. We're now talking about 2 megatons, 3 megatons. You know, that means 3 million tons of TNT. And it'll, you know, I mean, if those are dropped in Japan now, the whole archipelago will disappear. And it's not something to laugh about. It is madness that we don't give up these weapons. So I think we need to just start, you know, keep talking about how crazy it is that we can't let go of these killing machines.